So my name is Rohanna Rupel and I am the Director of Creative Economy at the British Council. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today. So Namaste, Assalamu Alaikum, Sabah al Khair and Eid Mubarak to anybody that's celebrating. My mum is and she's not very happy about me being here. But anyway, I'm happy to be here. Welcome to my panellists. Okay, so are we ready to kick off? So this session is focused on crafting futures, transforming livelihoods and supporting local entrepreneurship at a global scale. We've just heard that India is hosting the G20 this year and a lot of effort is going into supporting a more inclusive approach and thinking about the uniqueness of India and its strengths, particularly given that India is the largest producer of crafts worldwide. So in this session what we want to look at is the positive impact of the informal sector of Indian SMEs, and the government of India is taking steps to empower the quality, scale and reach of local artisan communities. Vocal for local, a movement that embraces the potential of self-reliant entrepreneurship, highlights the need to create effective policies, funding and strategies that uplift and support these cultural industries and grassroots level while eradicating social political barriers. So, I'm going to explore with my panel today in 20 minutes how can we create systems that enable the development of local crafts and their representation in national and global economies. So, on my panel today I have the fantastic Anita Dongre, who's a designer and founder of House of Anita Dongre. She's one of India's most prolific designers. Anita has been at the forefront of fashion for almost 30 years. She's credited with not only reinventing fashion for the modern woman, but bringing a culture of mindful fashion to generations of women, including Bollywood celebrities, global celebrities and royalty, such as Priyanka Chopra, Beyonce, Kate Middleton, Hillary Clinton. Welcome, Anita. And also we have with us today Dr. Maria Henderson, who's the Chief of Creative Economy Programme at UNCTAD. Dr. Maria Henderson has over 20 years of experience. She supports developing countries in leveraging their creative economy for sustainable development, employment generation and poverty reduction. She's also got a background in international trade, having worked at the mission of Argentina in Geneva, and she's also worked at the House of Commons, and she's authored publications on trade and development. Welcome, please, Dr. Maria Henderson. And then my third panellist is Professor Kate Goldsworthy. Kate Goldsworthy is the Chair of Circular Design and Innovation and Co-Director of the Centre for Circular Design. Kate is a designer and academic who merges material science, industry and design through practice-led research. And a lot of her work focuses on creative economy and circular economy. And she's had notable commissions from the Science Museum, the Victorian Albert Museum and the Fine Arts Museum in Boston. So that is my fabulous panel. So let's kick off the discussion. And perhaps I could start with you, Anita. You've obviously set up a very successful business. And how are you working on sustaining the intricate crafts and cultural heritage of India? And why do you think it's important to take work back to the villages?
Rihanna, I'll start with this is very personal to me as a woman in India. I started my career 40 years ago. And as a student of fashion design, I come from a very, very traditional family. I'm born, brought up in Mumbai, but my roots are Jaipur. And traditional Indian families did not allow women to work. So I literally come from a family where I graduated from fashion school, where I was told that you can't take the job because हमारे घर की लड़कियां काम नहीं करती हैं. I faced a lot of opposition. I was the rebel in the family, got my way, started my business with 2 sewing machines in my balcony. Was very driven, very passionate. Today we employ 2,500 people and thousands of artisans all over the country. And I really feel India's growth is its women, because if you economically, women in my country need to be empowered. Even 40 years later, there is so much change we need to bring in, especially in the villages of India. So the only way you can empower a woman is by economically empowering her. Now you yourself, somebody mentioned earlier that we have almost 100 or 200 million artisans in India. So women are taught craft in India, and it's a skill that they learn from mother, grandmother. So today, my biggest challenge and what I find exciting about my design today is how I can use design and creativity to empower somebody sitting 400 kilometers away in a village in a house. So there are two points, there are two attributes to this work that I do with village artisans that really excite me. Is firstly, I believe that you need to empower a woman in a village, you empower the whole village. The minute the woman is empowered, there's better education for her daughter, and she really keeps that whole family unit going. She gets a lot of respect in a village the minute she starts earning money. And she can do that in the comfort of her home without having to move to a city or to migrate to cities, because I think our cities are overcrowded. So to take work back to Indian villages is extremely important. What I really do is I take design, like for example the dress I'm wearing today. It could have just been an ordinary black dress, right? But you can
like
see
my
these
ordinary black outfit.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. Now, this has these little white dots, and this is not a print. This is a craft of bandagi, which is practiced in Rajasthan and Gujarat. So there's a woman who will be sitting in a house, she'll finish all her housework, and then she'll take this fabric and tie these little knots on the dress, and something like this might take her about a week. A sari that you wear to a wedding might take her 2 months. And that to me is empowerment. So when I'm wearing a piece of craft, there's so much satisfaction in knowing that this garment that I have, bought with my money as a consumer is empowering a woman 400 kilometers somewhere in a remote village, and this is giving her her monthly livelihood, her respect in the society. I work with so many women artisans who, when I go to the villages and I visit them, and they say that the money we've started making today, the village panchayat, the men look at us with more respect. So it's truly, truly a game changer. And then if you were to look at it as India as a country, I've got some statistics which say that women in India represent 48% of the population, yet they contribute only 17% of the GDP compared to 40% in China. Only 45% of women in India aged 15 to 29 are engaged in any education, employment or training, which contrasts with 6.5% of men. There are only 4.7% CEOs and 7.7% of board seats were held by women in 2021. So you can just know how what a huge difference craft can make to empower a huge population of our country. And
brilliant.
That's what we try to do. And we do this with in a lot of cities, we do this with government intervention, and I think that's where the government plays a large role. In Maharashtra, we run 7 training centers, which is a partnership with the local panchayat and the local government, where we train, we empower them, with skills where they are not skilled.
And what would you say in terms of, you said that the craft is handed from generation to generation, yes. The techniques are handed from generation to generation. Yes. What role do you think education, universities, colleges have to play in perhaps thinking about maybe new innovations to support that traditional making, but looking at it using perhaps new technologies or sustainable ways of producing? What are your thoughts on education?
The first thing the women artisans, when I started working with them 8 years ago, and 2 years down the line, I asked them what you all want. They all asked for smartphones. Today, a woman artisan in a village of India has her own smartphone. As she's embroidering a design, she takes a picture, sends it to me on WhatsApp. I can approve it sitting in the city. So technology and education has a huge role. We have to basically train that woman, craftswoman sitting in the village to become an entrepreneur. Today we have so many artisans who started out alone and who have groups of 20, 30, 40 women under them. So they're really all budding entrepreneurs. So to encourage that entrepreneurship skill in her, you definitely need to equip her with technology and education both. It will be a very key role.
Thank you very much. And what's your one wish in terms of India hosting the G20 presidency? What do you really want to see come out of that?
I want to see transformation in India, and I want to see transformation for the women in India. There's so much that needs to be done.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm now going to move us over to Dr. Maria Henderson, if I may. Can you please speak a little bit about how you think the unique edge of the informal creative economy which Anita just spoke about, can be harnessed and supported with policies to ensure fair growth.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. So I'm from UNCTAD, it's a small agency in Geneva, doing creative economy, and we just launched last year a report. It's called Creative Economy Outlook. You can just Google UNCTAD Creative Economy Outlook, and you will find lots of figures that I will mention now. And one of the things we mention in the report is that creative industries, we have very hard time in getting reliable data because of the informal character of the industries. In fact, creative industries are like it's a cottage industry where there are very low levels of production, niche products. They are reliable. There are lots of industries that are produced in rural areas where there are no distribution channels. So they need to be strengthened. And there are a lot of obstacles, particularly in the global south, in terms of exploiting creative industries for sustainable development. However, the crafts industry is a very unique industry in terms of poverty alleviation, because most of the artisans live in rural areas. So it's a key issue, it's a key industry to take into account if we want to fight poverty. We show that in the report, but we also wrote another report which is called Creative Industries 4.0, meaning the 4.0 revolution, and just shows how to mix, how to use the digital revolution to harness the creative industries, including the crafts, handicrafts. And we mention in the report how there are baby steps still, but there are many handicrafts, very traditional handicrafts, that are starting to use the digital marketplace, not only as a means of distribution, making distribution more sustainable and more democratic in a way, and reaching markets that were not reachable before, but at the same time at the creation and the production process, where they can be connected with different producers, maybe not necessarily in their little town. So this has a kind of a revolutionary impact, but it cannot be done by the artisans alone. So it has to be, there has to be a concerted effort, as the British Council Director was mentioning, to bring together the policymakers, the NGOs, the private sector, to be able to provide them space and give the training that is necessary, because generally artisans and small business, they are kind of, and artists are reluctant to go into maybe business practices, or very, going into the money or making of their craft. So it's important to support them in that regard. That doesn't mean that we're going to provide subsidies which means that we're going to work together to elevate their business. I just wanted to give you some figures. In the report, you mentioned about the gender inequality. In the report, you will see that there are a lot of still gender inequality, despite the fact that women represent a large majority of the workers and have this function of preserving heritage in many of the crafts. But in the report, you will see that some countries provided some figures, and unfortunately, in gender pay, there is a gender gap pay. For example, in Argentina, it's 28%, in Australia, 30%, 45% in New Zealand. Also, there are disparities in gender in the ILO, the International Labour Organization, has just published a publication that looks at the arts, entertainment, and recreation sectors. And on average, women account for 26% of junior management positions in the arts, entertainment, and recreation services, which include crafts, and only 29% of senior positions. So coming back to the informal sector, I think despite the fact that we have difficulty in finding hard data, may I just say that India is the largest producer and exporter of creative crafts. So there are official figures that support that. In terms of creative goods, so crafts are a portion of the total creative goods. The UK is the fourth largest exporter, world exporter of creative goods worldwide, according to our figures. And India is the 10th largest exporters of creative goods in the world. Now, what the director of British Council was saying, and also the director of this institute, was important as the UK-Indian relationship. And one of the key findings that we find in the report is that creative industries are actually the South-South cooperation is very important. Trade cooperation is very important for creative industries. One of the key issues is the language. So it is very, very important, obviously, considering that the two economies are one of the largest exporters of creative goods. I think the synergies and the promotion of cooperation, between the UK and India can actually be very, very beneficial, and that includes also through trade agreements and facilitating to get barriers to trade down.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maria. I'd now like us to move to Kate Goldsworthy. You must have seen many new materials being used, and can you please tell us a little about how makers in India could benefit from some of the new innovations and sustainable materials that are being developed here in the UK?
Thank you. Well, my role, I suppose, in my career the last 20 years or so has been very much in this sort of new material area, thinking about sustainability and more the circular economy in terms of, how do we change this industry that is extremely polluting globally. And actually what's interesting is just, it sounds on the surface quite a different space than we've been hearing about already, but actually we've come to a point that I think really connects. We've been for the last few years working on a creative industries cluster program based in the UK that has been not focused on working with big industry. It's been much more about connecting academia and the small and micro businesses in the UK that often are very heritage based, or new innovation technology, but sort of working hand in hand with academia to access funding, to access support, to sort of really answer the challenges that they bring to the table. And where this starts to connect more with the topics of today, we've for the last 2 years been working with the British Council on a programme called New Landscapes. So we're taking that idea of very focused projects with SMEs and micro business and taking that into collaborations with the UK and ODA countries, and it's been hugely successful for a very small, in sort of real terms, amount of funding. So we've launched 10 micro projects, one of which is a collaboration between a Welsh initiative in the UK that runs a series of repair cafes. And so they wanted to bring the knowledge that they had gained through this initiative of using digital technology, creating a platform where repair techniques could be shared, brought together in communities, for the purposes of circularity, circular economy and sustainability, but working with a partner in New Delhi to bring that sort of system to the incredible craft makers in India, the kind that you were talking about, these sort of incredible textile skills that not only can produce beautiful new clothing but also could be involved in repair and upcycling.
That's perfect for recycling.
Exactly. So it's again, I think it's focused, the big picture for us, or for me personally, is sustainability of the industry, but actually along the way, incredible sort of potential for skills development, training, collaboration across the partnership and entrepreneurship, as you
So
mentioned.
would you say, from your observations, that there's a growing movement in people actually caring about where their clothes are coming from, caring about recycling? Are you seeing that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've had incredible initiatives like Fashion Revolution, sort of that's been running for the last 10 years, that really does bring attention to that. But I think also, ecology and environment is a global problem. We so often, we try and do what we can in the UK, but the effects and the supply chain and the whole fashion system is global. So I think the more we can have these bilateral collaborations, the better.
I do think it's really small and it needs to snowball into a massive movement, and I think forums like this will encourage that to snowball. It needs to get much larger to have a better impact. It's very niche right now.
And what about some of the strange new materials? I mean, I've heard about things like mushroom leather and growing your own textiles. Is there room for that in the market?
No, absolutely. I mean, we've everything from the technology and fibre to fibre recycling, so being able to literally take clothes and break them back down to the fibre and rebuild them is happening. But that also applies from everything to agricultural waste. So textiles made from coffee bean waste or red wine waste, or one particular company we work with a lot uses the leaves from pineapples. So Anita, which is not based in India, but they have incredible connections to the agriculture, and then they turn them into beautiful fabric. So I mean that's a whole other world.
Okay. Well, my time is up. It's clearly not long enough to have an in-depth conversation, but I hope that my panellists have given you a little bit of a snapshot into the areas that they work in, and I hope that you will have the opportunity to speak to them while you're here and to learn a little bit more. But what I've picked up from here is that there is a gender gap, and there are still issues around equality. There are lots of positive ideas that are emerging, like, for example, the recycling cafes that you mentioned in Wales, and also this really important link around intergenerational learning, with people from one generation passing on the skill to another generation. So important, and I hope that while India has the G20 presidency, that this idea of retaining that intergenerational learning will continue, and that we will see also these ideas of thinking about climate, being climate conscious, really, as you say, mushrooming and becoming much bigger than they currently are. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking my excellent panelists.